For when my outward action doth demonstrate the native act and figure of my heart in complement extern, 'tis not long after but I will wear my heart upon my sleeve for daws to peck at. I am not what I am. And this is obviously a satanic line because it's the inverse, in some sense, of the moment when Moses sees the burning bush and the bush announces itself as God and says, I am that I am. Ehye asher ehye. This kind of perfect syllogism or perfect mirror and symmetry. I am what I am. God has no distance between the way that he represents himself, what comes out of him, the words he speaks, the way he appears to us. All of that is a perfect and exact representation. And this is, for example, why Paul says of Jesus that he's the image of the invisible God, right? Because God's property is always and everywhere to produce out of himself an exact representation of the thing that cannot be physically touched or seen or understood. So if God is this abstract perfection, and we are these mortal beings with senses. We see things, we touch things, we hear things. The problem is, how do we get access through our senses to the higher things, the truth and the goodness and all of that? And God's answer is, I'm going to place before your senses, in your ears and in your minds and in your eyes and all of that, I'm going to place before your senses accurate representations, perfect expressions. I am what I am. The inward and the outward are as one. They are united. Christ, God and the Father, God the Father and God the Son are one, right? That's the meaning, I think, of all those lines. I and the Father are one. The representation that God puts forward of himself in creation and in the incarnation is identical with, or at least, if not the same thing as, and points perfectly and accurately always toward the thing that cannot be touched or seen or thought. Othello is trying to the best of his ability to get to the truth, to express the truth, to speak the truth. Iago is doing the opposite. He has his own agenda, his own desires. He wants what he wants. He's going to get what he wants if he can, any way he can. And words are simply tools, instruments to that end, to his own self-satisfaction, and not to the truth. That fundamental distinction is always and everywhere at work in our lives, because we, being made in the image of God, are representational beings. That is, we are beings of flesh and blood. We are beings who live on earth. We have senses. We experience the world through our senses. And yet, we know from many episodes of this show, but also from our innate experience, that there is something which all of our material lives express. All of the ways that we speak and the sensory experiences that we have, they're not simply the contact of various bodies with other bodies. They are actually symbolical. They communicate something other than themselves. And our experience of the world contains within it a sense that the material world points beyond itself. And this is why an incarnational God makes perfect sense to us, even though it has all these mysteries in it. At the heart is something that is actually quite intuitive, which is God cannot be accessed by the senses, but he comes to us clothed in sensory existence. He is what he is. And the distance between what we are and what we say we are is one way of understanding the nature of sin.